Today we are going to be doing another layer of glaze on this painting right here. And what we're going to do first is we're going to put oil on the surface because this surface is really matte. It looks like it needs oil because certain pigments dry faster than others, and when that happens your paint can become underbound. So we're going to do that to that, and we're going to do it to this right here. I worked on this off camera. This was a painting just for me. It's now serving as my avatar here on YouTube. And I'm going to do essentially the same thing that I'm doing to this. I might do some touch up here and there, but for the most part I don't think I'm going to do too much to it other than add oil to it. But this is what we're going to do today, is this painting right here. I just wanted to have this here to introduce the avatar. And yeah, enough about my egocentrism. And it looks like my furry friend who was relaxing on the recliner. I got a recliner in here so I can relax. I was checking the studio setup, but it was a little too tight. Now it's a little looser. So we're all good now. Alright, first we're going to start by putting oil into the surface and then letting it sit for like 2 minutes and wiping the oil away. You want to let it sit so it can soak in, and then you remove the excess because you don't want too much. And this is just to unify the whole thing, so you don't have spots where it's sunken in and spots where it's glossy. Anyway, I'm starting in by putting the shadow in under the eyebrow and on the nose. And one of the things I'm going to try to do in this video is clean those eyelashes up. They look... at first, in the black and white, they looked okay, but as soon as I went to color, they looked horrendous. And the other big thing that I'm trying to achieve is... one, brightening it up, and two, pushing the saturation higher. I tried to get as close as I could, but I got to a point where I couldn't put more paint on. It was just everything was smearing into each other, so now we're back, and I can add more layers. I like working in this way, more so than trying to get it all done in one shot, because I can be a little bit more methodical with my color choices and use of visual noise and adding more visual information than I could if I just went wet into wet. Now, that's not that wet into wet is wrong, and you can absolutely do wet into wet paintings. I'm just picking this style because it kind of fits more of what I would rather do anyway, because I feel like I can accomplish a lot more, and I feel a lot more satisfied at the end with the end result than I would have if I just tried to do the whole thing from start to finish. So, right now I'm like trying to put color between the eyelashes. Ultimately it becomes a huge pain and I can't fix it. So what I end up doing is I cover over the whole eyelashes. I put in my shadows and highlights on the upper eyelid all over again, and textures. And I go back in with a liner brush. And when I went in with the liner brush at first, I had the problem that the lashes looked too fake, but I figured out how to make them look more realistic. It is because I don't have a hog hair bristle liner brush, so I don't have a liner brush for oil, but I do have liner brushes for acrylic, but the kind of brush marks they make are not really optimal. So what I did was I would make the lines, and then I would blend them out with my hog hair brush, because a hog hair brush has flyaway hairs, so it creates that look of hair, and it I don't want to say blended it out, but it like made it look fine. I cleaned it up by a lot. Okay, what am I doing now? All right, so throughout this painting, I use a towel or a rag to wipe away anything that like I don't like, because at this stage, and this is what's great about glazing, is if you don't like something that you did, you can easily get rid of it and it just comes right off, because it's not going to affect what's underneath, and what's on top is already wet, so it's easy to take away. Whereas if it was like all blended and mixed together and it was a wet into wet painting tutorial, I wouldn't be able to do that at all, like not one bit. Now, I'm noticing I made the vibrancy in the eye way too green. I do tone that down, tone that back a bit, but it's I'm putting in like colors where I see them. I'm looking in different spots of the photograph and trying to like really pay attention like what that color is. The eye looks to me to be green, but like there's actually lots of reds and yellows, and the green is not really strong. And I realized that partway through. I fix it, but yeah, sometimes something appears like it's something, but like, okay, I'm speaking English really badly right now. Sometimes you think like, let's say, okay, here the eye, I think it looks green. For the most part, the mass tone of this person has green eyes. But if I just put green in, it'd be very flat and unrealistic. There's actually a lot more going on than just what the mass tones information is giving me. Doesn't mean that the green isn't there. It is there, but you gotta have what's called balance, and that's why I recommend using all three colors in a lot of my mixes. I mean, unless I really need something that's like that vibrant. Like here I'm putting in like a very vibrant like magenta-y color. I'm using alizarin crimson and white for those. Maybe like a touch of the yellow. But yeah, because I was noticing that saturation was a lot higher on the flesh tone, so I really had to pump up the saturation. And even in the highlights, you would think that would be just yellow and white, but actually there's some spots where I put in purples and blues in the highlights, going across the cheek and the lower eyelid, and even on the upper eyelid. Of course, there's also yellowy white highlights, but when I was just adding that, it looked very flat. But when I added the opposite color also as well in the highlights, and what I'm doing is I'm dappling it in, and what I mean by dappling is like I'm kind of bouncing the brush on my surface, and the brush is creating automatic texture. That way I don't have to like bellyache over every little detail. Besides, if you do that, it's not going to look really realistic. So it's better to just have generalized abstraction of visual information. And I'm just strengthening up those shadows. I'm trying to make sure my lights are light enough and my darks are dark enough. In my other painting, not only was it too dull, my darks weren't dark enough and my darks were dark enough, but my lights were not light enough. And in this, I really bring up the lights, but you gotta make sure you keep those darks. Okay, right now I'm dappling in little details, like it's like where the light is catching, like in almost like individual, I guess, skin cells, or I don't know what they'd be called. The texture. Yeah, I'm putting the texture of skin in. And right now, I'm futilely trying to thin out the lines on those eyelashes to clean them up, but yeah, it just becomes really frustrating after a while, and I eventually cover these eyelashes up. I even changed some shapes a little bit. Like I went back in and I put in the black line above the upper eyelid. It's the crease where the upper eyelid meets with the eyebrow. I re-put that back in because the shape wasn't quite correct. Plus, it was starting to get covered over, so I had to put it back in. Because if you don't have your darks dark enough, yeah, it's just not good to not have your darks dark enough. That's one of the biggest things. Darks dark enough, lights light enough. But you always want to start dark before you go to the light, because if you start throwing in light colors in, it's just really easy to milk shadows up. And what I mean by that is you end up changing the value every time you blend by dragging paint from one area to another. And eventually what happens is it gets brighter and brighter, and then you lose your shadows because the white can overpower it really easily. Now here I'm just trying to put in like wrinkles that I'm seeing in the photograph. I can't see it on the camera, and you won't be able to see it on the camera. But if you have the print, it's on Pixabay for free. And you can follow along with this video if you go to pixabay.com and download this image. I don't know. I think it's within the first page of results. I'm just going in and making my lights light enough, darks dark enough. That's all I'm doing at this point. Also trying to increase the saturation. I didn't think I would need to do that because in real life, you don't use a lot of saturated colors, but this print is very saturated. And the photograph isn't actually that saturated, just my printer just printed the photo very highly saturated. I could have probably desaturated it, but I kind of like the look of like the high contrast of it being highly saturated color. Now I'm going back into the eye. Am I putting the shine in? I don't think I am. Okay, I'm now fixing the iris color. I'm putting in some reds and yellows. It makes it look a little less flat, and these colors are there. It's actually, I don't know, I guess the eye is almost a brown. It's not really a brown. It's not, I was almost going to say something that could probably be burned for. It's like, I was going to say, that's not a brown eye. And I'm like, wait, I stopped myself. That would have been a that's what she said moment. I don't know why I'm putting that in. I'll probably cut this part out. I don't know. If not, here's my butchering of the English language. I think right here I'm putting red into the outer, I don't want to say rim, I gotta get my head out of the gutter, but I think I'm putting red on the outer outline of the iris and bring it in, and I think it looks like I'm getting rid of something. Okay, I'm strengthening the dark color on the outer ring. That's what I wanted to say, outer ring, not rim, of the iris. Eventually, I think I ran out of, I don't know, I think I ran out of white paint, or, I guess I don't know why I just took out solvent-free gel for. I don't even remember. I think I ran out of white paint partway through because a lot of this was getting my lights light enough, so I used a lot of white paint in this tutorial. You're probably wondering why there's a spaghetti jar with paper towels in it. The reason I do that is because, well, I don't know. I got paranoid. I was going to throw my oil painting towels in the trash, but on the oil painting, not the oil paint bottle, but the linseed oil bottle, it says, warning, spontaneous combustion. So I put it in the spaghetti jars to block off oxygen from getting to it, because what happens is it doesn't evaporate, it oxidizes, it reacts with oxygen molecules in the air, and when they're lumped up in a trash can, they can build up heat and eventually get to a flash point and catch on fire. I think it's more a problem with like probably construction or hardware store grade linseed oil or paints, but I'm not taking chances. I could probably make a video in the future about how I dispose of them. I should take them to a trash disposal, but what I do is I put them out on my garage floor and I just let them dry out until they're completely dry, and then I just throw them out with the regular trash. I figure once it's completely dry, it's like dried paint on a painting. Like, I could probably throw a painting in the trash if I wanted to. Not that I would, but like, I don't think it would cause too much of a problem. And here I think I glazed in red over the eye. I put the upper eyelid back in, and I think I covered. Oh yeah, actually, here's where I changed my line on the upper crease, and oh, here we go. I think I'm covering up my eyelashes and starting over. Yeah, I just decided I was getting too frustrated trying to like work between eyelashes, putting in colors and stuff, so I decided to cover over eventually. Oh, why did I pick that yellow? That's a bad choice. Oh well. There's a lot of yellow in this, but that was not a really best spot for it. Then if I was paying more attention, I probably would have changed the shape of that shadow on the lower lid just slightly. And just bring that shape up just a little bit. I don't know. I've been looking at it for a while, and when you look at something that you considered done originally and you look back at it, you see other things that you could do. There's always something else. Okay. I think probably my camera skipped out for part of it. It looks like some work happened while the camera wasn't rolling. Sometimes my camera just stops rolling. And I won't realize it until it's too late. That's all that can be done. Okay. I decided to like nix the eyelashes entirely and cover over it and get everything more or less where I wanted it and correct. And now I'm going in with a liner brush. And originally I thought they looked really fake, and I still do. But when I go back over with a hog hair brush and fan out the tips of those eyelashes, they read more like eyelashes after I fan them out with a hog hair brush. But right now I'm creating it with an acrylic paint brush because I don't have a liner brush for oil paint. I'm really trying to pay attention to the direction of where the eyelashes are going. And they kind of fan out from the center in opposite directions. And then in the middle, there's not like one eyelash that's longer than the other two and neck adjacent. It's like there's two equally large size eyelashes that almost make like a horseshoe shape in the middle. And they fan out opposing each other. Now I'm going in and putting the eyelashes in the lower eyelid. And I made them smaller because they were way too stark in the original image. Okay, now I'm going back in with the liner brush and I'm fanning out the ends of these eyelashes. And the frayed hairs on my hog hair brush are creating some flyaways that happen. And it just brings a more quality of realism to the piece. I think like here is like the most blending I do. I didn't really do much blending at all. I mean, I might have mixed on well, it's not a canvas, but there's a technique called mixing on the canvas. I mixed on my palette first for the most part, but I guess I blended a little bit. I don't know. We're almost getting to the end here. Like, I have everything more or less where I wanted it to be. One thing that I probably changed, and this was a mistake I made while I was working on this, I think it got so, like, bogged down in everything else. I didn't realize the left side of the white of the eye needs to just be just like a step brighter on that side. Because it's almost the same and not quite. I mean, it's brighter than the other side, but it definitely needs to be brought up. I don't know if I'm doing it in this video. I don't think I do. I think after the eyelashes, I think I add like some really high bright highlights using purples and yellows. Not mixed together, but like separately. Purple mixed with white and yellow mixed with white. And I think I might have used a little bit of blue in there. Originally, I thought the whites of the eyes were blue. There are blue in there. But the more I look at it, there's a cast of magenta that I'm seeing from the photo. Of course, it's a print, though, so they're using the true primaries, whereas I'm just using more of the traditional primaries, which aren't, they're not perfect, because I realize the blue that we associate with blue is not true blue. True blue is cyan. Like, I can mix ultramarine blue, although I do like it as a single pigment color. But I could mix ultramarine blue from like a more teal colored single pigment paint. I could just mix like the same equivalent of ultramarine blue. But I can't really mix a perfect turquoise or a perfect teal from ultramarine blue. Okay, we're coming to the end. Yeah. So this was my final layer. I don't think I'm making any more videos. I might do a touch-up on my own. Like, comment, and subscribe.